They are looking for money. Now, poor Musenero. I'm not the...
Doctor, I want to take you back international. How has the world, briefly, how has the world fought epidemics before? And what makes now COVID so special? Much as you have told us it's a new disease. How has the world fought epidemics before? And why is COVID becoming a serious problem even when it has come at a modern time with innovations, brains, and advancement in science and technology, your sector?
The same things have been used in all pandemics. They have fought epidemics by social distancing, quarantine, wearing the mask, and vaccination and education. So community education, for people to know what to do and not what to do. Wearing the mask was used in the Spanish flu. Once you discover that this disease can be moved from person to person, and you have an idea of how long it takes, then even if I don't know what's causing that disease, I can start to control it.
The pandemic has now taken a twist. It has variants. Can you explain briefly to somebody what the variants are, and in these terms of COVID, what kind of variants do we have and where they're coming from? Which ones, anyway, do we have in Uganda currently? Do we have a number of them or just one?
Okay. Now, how can I explain a variant? A variant is like, I don't know, do you have a son?
Yes.
Does he look like you?
Yes.
Exactly like you?
Yes.
A bit like you?
Somehow like me.
We can differentiate him from you.
Yes.
Yeah, so that son is a variant of you.
Okay.
Yeah, so it is like viruses don't reproduce like us, that you marry and get a wife and get that. But these ones, they produce by dividing. Now, every time a virus divides, it changes something, it combines something different. Now, many of them end up dying because the combinations make them non-successful. And they especially do this because the moment a virus enters the body, it has entered a war zone. It's fighting.
Okay.
The body wants to get rid of it, so it has to find how to survive. As it's trying to survive, it does that by trying, let me try here, maybe this will work. You know, maybe this will work. And eventually, the ones that manage to avoid that particular immune system, they multiply, they become dominant. And so you will see that from the time we got, actually there are thousands of variants, but most of the variants are disadvantageous to the virus, or they don't make it. So the World Health Organization says there are some viruses which have changes, and when it gets that change, it becomes a big concern. So they call it variants of concern, VOC.
Yes.
So those are the ones which survive. The others which are not, they die off. So in Uganda, first we had, when the original Wuhan virus came here, then we had a variant. We had one which changed. They called it 2.3. Then it changed, and by the time we had the peak and the slope, the first slope where the cases reduced, we had a variant called the Kampala strain, which was 2.3.1. It was like a grandchild of the Wuhan. It was like, yeah, a grandchild or great-grandchild of the original Wuhan. Now, also, we opened the airport, and people started coming in. Now, UK had variants, just like that. Wherever the virus went, it created a way to survive there. And and they were not the same changes, but somehow it reached a point where it survived. So the characteristics of these ones, we call them the variants of concern, is that they acquire a new habit. One, either they cause more severe disease, or they spread very fast. They have got a way to spread very fast, or they have ability to cause disease in younger, healthier people, or they have ability to cause disease in people who had been infected before or who have been vaccinated.
At that very point, Doctor, what does it mean for the fight against this pandemic, where people have already taken steps of finding vaccines, trying to struggle to find treatment and things like that, and the virus again is almost ahead of you, the scientists? So how are you going to handle that? Not you as an individual or Uganda, but generally the world over, those of you that are in charge of seeing that we get over this virus. With this multiplication, it seems to be ahead of you. It seems to be ahead of us. How are we going to handle the situation? Because the variants are already out. We have a number of them with a few vaccines that actually were produced before even the variants came out. So that relationship there, the gap between the two, how can it be closed?
First, let me tell you about the variants we have in Uganda, just in a half a minute. One, in Uganda we have the Kampala strain. We have a mix of strains. The Virus Institute is trying to do some new sequencing, and they will inform us what has happened in June. But we have a mix. We had an introduction of the Indian variant, I think around late April, but we had the UK strain variant, we had the South Africa variant, and we had the Nigerian variant, and a number of other new Kampala variants. So there are many others, but we only talk about those we call VOC, the variants of concern. And the evidence we have so far now, unless new data came out yesterday, is that we are having a mix. We're having a mix of variants, a number of them. The common characteristic with most of these variants is that they spread quite faster and they cause disease in younger people. Now about vaccines.
Not only vaccines, the measures available, social distancing, what. How effective are they with the variants that are coming in different versions, different numbers, and things like that?
The good thing with most of these measures we are telling you as SOPs, they work in irrespective. Social distancing will work, whatever variant it is. That's why in most countries they put lockdown to force people to social distance. Because that's like the big gun of controlling COVID. Lockdown is the cannon. You just come, and it has served most of the countries, especially when you put it there. But we also need, it has a lot of side effects, especially on the economy. In Uganda, we had it at the beginning, as we understand. We have been trying to balance. If things get really out of hand, we'll go there. But if we have failed, other ways of achieving social distancing. Social distancing, whichever way you achieve it, if you achieve social distancing, it will work irrespective of variant. 2, the mask. The mask still will work irrespective of the variant. 3, so far we don't have any variant that is resisting sanitizing or soap. So hand washing and this surface disinfection still works. But of course now we come to the second level. Are they causing severe disease? More severe disease than before? The symptoms they cause in the people, do they still respond? You know, remember we don't have specific treatment. Do they still respond to the treatment that we have? If it causes more severe disease, then you need more hospitals. And maybe more high-level care. Does it cause disease in young people? Then we need to target the young people to cause interventions to slow down the spread. Instead, you know, then we are talking about comorbidities. The old people stay home, don't visit your parents. Now, that's not such a big message. It is a big message still, but we have concern about young people. Now, the last one is the vaccine. The good thing is that science has really, really developed. And now, for us to modify a vaccine, once we have the mainline vaccine, to modify it is very, very easy. So there is continuously this surveillance to know which variants are there, and then adding those variants into the vaccine. Yeah, so it's a war. It's a war we will win. I want to assure you, we will win against COVID. We are going to win against COVID. It's going to be a war. We can't tell you that we'll end it tomorrow, but our goal is to win. We are eventually going to have tools. So the science, I wish you knew how much science work goes on in a single day on this, and they are pumping out a lot of information every day. So as you apply that, when the South Africa variant was observed not to bypass some cases of AstraZeneca vaccine, so AstraZeneca went back and modified it. Yeah, so we will have to keep modifying the vaccine, but I want to also tell you that irrespective of which variant, vaccination with the existing vaccines works. It lowers, even if it doesn't protect you completely from infection, it will protect you from being so sick that you need to go to the hospital. But for now, countries that have vaccinated, their cases are very low and the cases of severe disease are extremely low.
Thank you so much, Doctor. We're taking a very short break, but on return, we'll now come back home and look at the issues here, being on the task force with all the assignments that you have on that task force. To you watching us, you need this program like, I don't know, because all the information you have to equip yourself with is in this discussion with Dr. Monica Musenero. Do not go anywhere. Let's get to you after this break. UBC One-on-One, welcome back. From the break, we are discussing the escalation of COVID-19 internationally and in Uganda, but of course our concentration is back here at home. My guest is now Honorable Dr. Monica Musenero, Presidential Advisor on Pandemics and Epidemics, and now Minister Designate for Science and Technology in the Office of the President. Honorable Doctor, welcome back from the break.
Thank you.
Yes, you are on the task force for the fight against COVID-19 in Uganda. With all that we have looked at, what is our position in winning the war that you have said? Because we have almost lost on a number of grounds. You closed schools. Yourself, you're telling me that actually schools were fully open in some areas. Where were you? How did this happen? The other day I saw police arresting people from bars, but where we pass in the night, bars were open. What kind of enforcement did you as a task force and government in general put in place to ensure that you secure this? Actually, didn't you sleep on the job more as authorities than us, the citizens?
Thank you very much. Now, let me start from the last one, the last point you said.
In terms of enforcement?
Yes, laws are made under the presumption that the majority of the population will observe, and there will be need to enforce with the minority who fail to observe. All laws. That's why theft is a rare incident. Much as every time you see it, people begin to feel to panic. Actually, if 1% of Ugandan population started stealing, people will panic because crime is supposed to be rare. Now, the public health measures are put in the same way. Public health measures are enforceable if the majority of the population comply. Then it is easy for government to find the enforcement of those few lawbreakers. So when government puts out a directive, that directive usually follows education. It follows communication. It follows, and that's why the president takes a lot of time to belabor, to explain the things. He explains everything so that people know the basis on which he's making those directives. So our first responsibility is community information, community education, community engagement, so that people know. Now, when people know and understand how useful this is to them personally, Now, our work as government is to make sure that these few people who don't want to comply don't harm the public's health. That's why we call it public health. We stop the few people who disobey. We call them public health hazards. If you are one, you want to go into a place, you don't want to put on a mask, you're putting the rest of the public's health at risk. That's why we call it the public health. Now, when a big chunk of the community do not comply, then enforcement will not work. Because we have how many law enforcement officers? 25,000? How can they cover this entire country? Even just Kampala here, how many bars do we have? How can they? So our first responsibility is to make sure that people value their lives. And because you value your life, because you understand, you have to take care of your life. Because in Uganda they say, omulamu yafuna. When you are alive, you can always do things. Now, so when a large number of human beings decide to do things and they defy, enforcement will become ineffective. And then government has to go to a different level.
What kind of plans are you coming in with? Because the second wave seems to be more bigger than the first wave that we faced. This time round, what kind of plans are you coming with in terms of enforcement or whatever? Yesterday, just days after the presidential address, the bus parks were filled to capacity. People were fighting for space in the buses. The social distancing you're talking about cannot even, was not anywhere. Actually, did not even make any sense in the bus parks in a manner that was unavoidable. What kind of measures are you coming in differently this time with?
So the first measure is what we are doing now.
You're still the same people?
Yes.
Dealing with the same thing?
Yes. I think now one of the things is when people don't feel imminent danger, they don't take in the message. You know, my primary training was as a vet, and I like dealing with the animals. If I don't like a dog to be anywhere, I just lock them up. You can't do that to human beings. So when I come into public health, you have to speak to the people. So we are engaging the people. We have engaged all traders downtown since the president spoke. We have engaged the taxi owners. We have engaged the bus owners. At the level of the taxi park, we had to come in heavier. You saw people were being arrested. And then the government came in and evacuated the park. Of course, it was a bit unfortunate. It was something we didn't foresee because we did not plan to lock down Kampala. So we didn't imagine that those were not all students. The students were out-competed. We had planned to have students dispersed, but the president even insisted we enforce SOPs in the city but leave public transport to be moving. So we didn't expect that a huge number of people who are not students would choose to go to the village because the city is going to be functional. We're just enforcing SOPs. Unless that doesn't work, then he would take a second level. So it is the students were out-competed by the public, by the other people. So the buses that had been estimated were inadequate.
How did you again choose to put the lives in the villages at risk by sending back children from schools to the villages? Yet yourself, you told me that there were problems within the schools. SOPs were not observed and children were sick. The same children you're sending back to the villages, and you're actually sending COVID-19, whatever the variants are, to the villages.
For us as scientists and public health, I had made a recommendation that the kids stay at school, but Ministry of Education had a dilemma. They had two key dilemmas. One, if these students stay at school, we don't want them to interact with teachers, because teachers are going to bring, that's how the disease has been coming into boarding schools, because we wanted boarding students to stay. So how are you going to keep kids at school for 42 days and they are not studying? How would you maintain? How would you keep? The second dilemma is who is going to take care of these kids now? Should we ask parents to pay more money? Because most of the children, their term, the ones that we knew officially were in school, one class, their term was ending. The others were supposed to come, and you remember there was information circulating, don't take your child to school yet until the president guides the country. So the ones that were legally in school, their term was coming to an end. And either you would have to ask the parents, because when the students stay there, they need food, they need what? So school owners who are already struggling will struggle in how to keep these children. And when you come, government, it's end of financial year, there is really no way you are going to get money into those schools for children to eat. So it was a big dilemma, and we said, okay, we're going to take this risk. Chances are some children will be infected, and chances are they will take disease to some families, but we are going to enhance surveillance. We're also going to communicate to the districts to pay closer attention so that wherever there are clusters which emerge from this, we can deal with them very fast. And it was discussed. It is not that there is, it was discussed. And it was resolved that really, in terms of a practical measure, let's just close all the schools, let the children go home, and then we will deal with it from there. Because
how are you going to deal with it, Doctor? Because I'm imagining if a good number of these children were really infected, and they have gone home, some of whom have weak parents in terms of age and things like that. Actually, the variants that we have these days even attack those who are still strong. How are you going to deal with an escalation that comes from that quagmire?
One, again, we have sent information. We have communicated to parents to social distance or isolate the children, explain to the children were actually instructed at school. When you reach home, keep a distance. Put on your mask at home and self-isolate. Not every parent will be able to, but if possible, test the child. The second thing is we've alerted all the districts. And the district task forces have been all activated. The issue is COVID was already spreading very fast, and having huge numbers of children in school, COVID abhors congregation.
In terms of fighting COVID, how empowered are the districts that you are alerting to be on standby?
Districts have district task forces. They have been trained. They have a district, a local government has structures up to village level. We have in place what we call the community engagement system, where every village has a village health team. Information has been sent, so they all have training modules for all these people. What is being worked on now is to make sure that they have some money. But there's still a lot we can do with what is there. Because I don't know how much money a person on a village needs to check on their village mates to see if they are sick, if they have someone who is sick, and then inform the sub-county.
You told me when we were discussing the bigger picture of COVID-19 that countries that have had vaccinations seriously, their rates are really going low.
Yes, they are gone down.
How effective has our vaccination been, and what kind of results does it give in terms of kicking COVID out of Uganda? Have we even had 1 million people vaccinated yet?
So manufacture cannot be quickened without compromising quality. because by the time a vaccine is put in you, we have to be very sure that it's not going to harm you. We have to be very, very sure. So the history of vaccine manufacturing was that a large chunk of the world was kept out as part of the systems. We simply were consuming vaccines. We never put capacity to produce vaccines. I wish I could show you the map. The African continent, the entire continent, doesn't produce vaccines. We just have tiny, tiny things in North Africa. We don't produce vaccines. We were depending on companies in Europe, on companies in America, and recently on this India.
Where does that now leave us, especially as Uganda?
So now, when vaccines came, everybody first. And by the way, by the time the vaccine production came, countries which have money paid for vaccines way ahead of it. So like Serum Institute was manufacturing to supply AstraZeneca's vaccine, which has already been paid for by different countries. So our access to vaccine is very limited. So Uganda has only got, so far the one that we had, it came through World Health Organization, through COVAX, that what they call COVAX, and it was less than 1 million doses, 964,000 doses. Each person gets 2. So the goal was to vaccinate those very highly susceptible people. You remember, we're losing a lot of healthcare workers and the vulnerable in the first wave. So we had thought we would vaccinate those, then the teachers and the forces, because the first one really hit the forces because they were enforcing and they were getting exposed. So wanted to vaccinate them. Unfortunately, when the vaccine came, the negative voices were all over the place. You know, you put out a message and so diluted. All vaccines are going to harm you. Vaccines are 666. There was a spiritual angle. There was a political angle. There's a race that wants. So what we call the anti-vaxxers, the many people, even health workers, refused to be vaccinated. Because the vaccine came in March and it was to expire in July. This vaccine came in and the health workers refused to be vaccinated. Up to now, up to the other week, only 30% of the health workers, of the teachers, it's only the forces who were vaccinated. And even many people in the category of the elderly whom we really wanted, many didn't go. Actually, that is why. So vaccines sat at the district. The healthcare workers in the district were not taking it. It is until May when cases have started going up. Like I can show you here, when cases now started going up, that and many people have started dying, that there's a surge of people. But now the way we had designed it was that for you to be protected by the AstraZeneca vaccine, you need 2 doses. The first dose is given and the second dose is given 12 weeks later. That's the best timing. We could give it 8 weeks, but the best timing for you to get the best. And we had estimated that this surge is going to come when the majority of those targeted population would have got their 2 doses. So all teachers will be vaccinated, so have no worries in school. All healthcare workers will be vaccinated. We have no worries in the health facilities. And the elderly will be vaccinated so that we don't have a lot of worries of severe disease.
How are you solving problems like health centers are constrained with being under-equipped? As a task force, because these are things I think you would look at to help the Ministry of Health push for them, probably before Parliament and whoever. Health workers are constrained in terms of equipment, in terms of incentives. The other day I saw one of the hospitals in northern Uganda, oxygen alone, they did not have enough in comparison of the numbers of people that were flocking the health center for services. So how are you coming in with, what kind of solutions are you coming in with to solve such areas that may make your movement to the fight against COVID soft?
Thank you. I have put COVID cannot be controlled in the healthcare centers. COVID is controlled in the community. There is no country under the sun which has succeeded in providing enough treatment for all the COVID cases that can emerge, especially when you go into a peak.
So don't we need that equipment?
Yes, we do. So we have equipment, but that equipment has a capacity. And that's what I wanted to show you here. We can impoverish this country, equipping and turning every stadium and whatever into a hospital, and we're still not able to save as many people. And then in the end, you're going to end up with a redundant capacity. So our first target as a task force is control the rate at which people are infected in the community. And that's the primary thing we are doing. Then the second thing is we have built a lot of capacity since COVID started. We now have every regional hospital has 10 ICU beds. We have some ICU beds, we have HDU, high dependence units. We have oxygen manufacturing. Now they have oxygen manufacturing plants at these facilities so they can fill these cylinders. We have expanded, we have Nambole to receive moderate cases, which are not yet severe, that don't need oxygen. But we can turn the entire national budget into procuring gadgets for health facilities. And this is a disease which is going to come and go. Yet, if we stopped the flow of cases, if we social distanced, if we put on our masks, if we followed SOPs, it's not that we shall completely stop, but the number of cases going in is going to be smaller, and within the capacity that we have, we are going to manage. We treat those people, they don't die because the healthcare workers are there. You can't start all of a sudden training doctors now. We have even if we increase, we have a limited number of doctors. By the time you train new ones, the disease will be gone. So the biggest, most important intervention is in the community. Yes, and I call upon our listeners. We are the ones who will determine whether so many people die in the hospital or whether whoever is unfortunate to fall sick goes in there and finds a number of doctors, they are able to attend to them. And this is when we prevent the infection.
Doctor, what kind of lessons do you think Uganda has drawn or should draw from the COVID-19 situation? You actually no longer an ordinary doctor, you're now a minister. As government, as the country Uganda, what kind of lessons do we draw from this situation going forward? One, definitely we need preparedness. We need to do projections of things before they happen. And we work at a certain, I'm not the kind who believes we should just go into massive converting the country into intensive care units, no. But preparedness. Number two, we need to engage the community better. We need to engage the people. Whether so many people die in the hospital or whether whoever is unfortunate to fall sick goes in there and finds a number of doctors, they are able to attend to them. And this is when we prevent the infection. Doctor, what kind of lessons do you think Uganda has drawn or should draw from the COVID-19 situation? One, definitely we need preparedness. We need to do projections of things before they happen. And we work at a certain, I'm not the kind who believes we should just go into massive converting the country into intensive care units, no. But preparedness. Number two, we need to engage the community better. We need to engage the people. People telling parents to give children all of the types of concoctions give them garlic with salt, give them whatever. Doctor, what would be your recommendation with the time that we have been in the fight of this against this pandemic? What do you think those initiatives we can take at home, at our individual home-based level? What are those things? Drink this. What would you recommend?
As far as I'm concerned, we do not have any concoction you'll give a child to prevent them from developing disease. Totally prevent. But the most important concern of parents now should be, if my child has come home, number one, if you are able to test the child, test and know the status of the child. If the child is COVID negative, give them a balanced diet. Balanced diet. Balanced diet, sometimes when you talk about balanced diet, people want to, oh, that's elitist. No. The person who can have a most balanced diet are the villagers, because it should include carbohydrates, we can include proteins, and beans are a very good source of protein. It's nothing very expensive. We can include eggs, and most homes have a chicken. You don't have to eat eggs every day, but you eat some. It includes a lot of greens, and it's a rainy season. So we have dodo everywhere. These things which we can afford. Feed the child. You can give the child some fruits to increase the vitamin C. And it's okay to give them some ginger, but please don't give the child all sorts of concoctions.
So this business of
educate the child.
Give them lemon, give them a lot of ginger.
They are just going to corrode and cause peptic ulcers. They are going to harm the children. Those things should be eaten at the level as they are food. If it is too salty to eat, then it should not be eaten. If the ginger is too bitter to the normal you drink in the tea, it should not be taken. If garlic is too much, it should not be taken. This lemon has to be diluted to a level where it is drinkable. Otherwise, you're going to harm your child's longer-term health. And please don't medicate the children. Don't go buy azithromycin. Don't go buy zinc. Don't go. The best treatment you can give your child now is a balanced diet.
How about the steaming?
Now,
Thank you so much, Doctor.
Steaming is recommended for those with congestion, because you see, when it's cold, a lot of people sneeze, because cold causes stress of the respiratory system. Steaming when people have congestion but not too much, because some people are going even to harm, to injure, because they are putting very high temperature, thinking that steam cannot reach where the virus is to kill it. Maybe the one coming out in the secretions, but as soon as you finish, more will come out, because the virus is multiplying in the throat and deep in the sinuses. So that can only help if a child is sick, but don't do that. Give the child a mask. It is a better protection. Let them wear a mask, social distance for the next 2 weeks. 2 weeks are enough.
Yes, Doctor.
As we're winding up, is there anything like lockdown? Everyone is worried.
The president gave us 7 days on condition that SOPs are restored to the maximum. If SOPs are restored, if people are hand washing, if sanitizers are in the taxis, the number of people entering a taxi is that which was recommended by the Minister of Health. The mask wearing is up to the standard, where people are able to protect themselves. The social distancing in other public spaces. He gave us 7 days to put that in place. Because if we put that in place, although it's not as effective as a lockdown, it's going to start to slow the cases which are entering the hospitals, and we can manage. But if the end of 7 days, there is no evidence that the public is taking on these measures, the voluntary measures, then he will have to put a lockdown.
Her name is Dr. Bonica Musenero. She's the Presidential Advisor on Epidemics and Minister Designate for Science and Technology in the Office of the President. She also sits on the task force, the National Task Force that is in charge of the fight against COVID-19, which has escalated, and they're doing a lot of work to see that we get better as Uganda. Thank you so much for watching. That is all we had for you. With my camera person, Gloria Gwitabinji, and the usual man, Davis Kamukama. My name is Michael Jordan Lukomwa. Wish you the best of the night. Bye-bye. Catch you in other programs.
We've cut and reduced our MTN